It's a poor legacy.
Since we're still in Ezekiel, I wanted to talk a little bit about the rather weird vision he had recorded in chapter 1 and referenced again in a later chapter, which I can't remember now. Let us read this again, this description of these creatures that he saw. This is Ezekiel chapter 1, starting in verse 4. I'm not going to read all of it. I just want to read a few key points and then talk about it a little bit. So right here it says, "And I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud, and a fire enfolding itself, and a brightness was about it, and out of the midst thereof, as the color of amber, out of the midst of the fire. And out of the midst thereof came the likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man, and every one had 4 faces, and every one had 4 wings. As for the likeness of their faces, they 4 had the face of a man, and the face of a lion on the right side, and they 4 had the face of an ox on the left side, and they 4 also had the face of an eagle. And they went every one straight forward, whither the Spirit was to go. They went, and they turned not when they went." Now this is actually verse 4, 5, 10, and 12. Now I mentioned when I did my reading that this is a very weird vision here, what he's seeing, and that there's no real explanation of it. There's never been a prophet that has declared the meaning of this. But in chapter 10, it refers to them as the cherubim several times. Now before we continue, what is a cherubim? Now technically a cherub is singular and cherubim is plural, and when the King James scholars were translating, they put the S at the end, not because they didn't understand that cherubim was plural, but because most of the lay people of England who are going to be reading this King James Version wouldn't have known that. They wouldn't know that cherubim was plural. And so they put an S on the end of it so that the English, the people who speak English and not the people who speak Hebrew, would understand that it's plural. But what are the cherubim? Now in this, 4 faces, 4 wings, they got wheels, they got rings, it's all very weird. And yet, in the tabernacle, on the mercy seat, you had 2 cherubim, each with only 2 wings. And in Solomon's temple, you had 2 cherubim, each with only 2 wings. See, a cherubim is just a class of angel, a divine being. The cherubim kept the way of the tree of life in the Garden of Eden. So these creatures, they're being called cherubim by Ezekiel because they are representations of something divine, but we don't know what. And that's what the term cherubim is really. It's a representation of something divine. That's really what a cherubim is, or a cherub in Ezekiel. So what do they mean? Now, no prophet, as far as I have been able to find, has ever given us an explanation of what these things are in Ezekiel. However, after I did my reading of chapter 1, there was a comment put on it. It has since been removed, and I think it may have been removed because I was somewhat dismissive. I replied to it, but I just said, yeah, they're interesting theories, but they generally generate more questions than answers, and so I don't generally listen to them. And I think that was a disservice to the person posting. He actually gave a description of a meaning for them, quoting from some scholar, I'm not sure which one, as the comment's been taken down. But according to this, and I did do some research on it myself afterward, I looked it up, and it's a perfectly valid theory. That's all it is a theory. But I wanted to share it. I want to make sure everybody hears it, because it is a fun theory, and after I share it, I will tell you what the problem with it is. So to understand this theory, let us first turn back to the book of Numbers. Now in Numbers, what we are given here, Numbers chapter 2, this is the marching order of the camp of Israel. Each tribe is set in its own place in the camp, and it marches out in a specific order. Chapter 2 gives us this order. So now, let us read this. And again, I'm just going to read some key phrases, but it'll be taken from the entire chapter. So here we go. So again, we're going to start verse 3. "And on the east side, toward the rising of the sun, shall they of the standard of the camp of Judah pitch throughout their armies." Now pay attention. East side. "And those that do pitch next unto him shall be the tribe of Issachar, then the tribe of Zebulun. And on the south side shall be the standard of the camp of Reuben, according to their armies. And those that pitch by him shall be the tribe of Simeon, and then the tribe of Gad. Then the tabernacle of the congregation shall set forward with the camp of the Levites in the midst of the camp. On the west side shall be the standard of the camp of Ephraim, according to their armies, and by him shall be the tribe of Manasseh, and the tribe of Benjamin. The standard of the camp of Dan shall be on the north side by their armies, and those that encamp by him shall be the tribe of Asher, then the tribe of Naphtali. So here's our marching order. Each section of the camp has its leader tribe. Judah on the east, Reuben in the south, Ephraim on the west, Dan in the north, with the tabernacle in the center. Now, what does this have to do with the creatures that Ezekiel saw? Well, remember the four faces. A man in the front, a lion on the right, an ox on the left, and an eagle in the rear. Now we consider, Judah is the lion of Israel. He's on the east. Now remember that the whirlwind came from the north. And so Ezekiel, looking at it, is looking from the south to the north. So on Ezekiel's right-hand side, there's the lion, or Judah, in the east, the lion of Israel. Ephraim is in the west. Ephraim is the bull, or the ox. Reuben, being the firstborn, is he's described as the excellency of Jacob's strength, and so represented by a man in the south, the part that would be facing Ezekiel. Then we get a little complicated, because it says an eagle's in the rear, but Dan is in the north, and his original symbol was the serpent. But it is said that as time passed on, the serpent took on a negative meaning. And so Dan changed it to being an eagle holding a serpent, grasping a serpent, and then just got rid of the serpent altogether and made himself an eagle. So by the time Ezekiel sees his vision, Dan is represented by an eagle. Now these representations are all taken from Jacob's last blessing of his sons in Genesis 48 or 49, I can't remember. But that's what it's saying. The four faces represent the four camps of Israel. Because Ezekiel was facing north, what was on his right would be Judah, or the lion. On the left is Ephraim, or the bull. On the south is Reuben, the man. And on the north is Dan, the eagle. Now, that's a nice theory, and I like it. But there's two problems I have with it. One is that there is no record of this, what the standards of Israel would have been. What they're saying, what the claim is that the standard, the flag that each tribe would fly. So Judah's flag, as they were coming out of Egypt, as they were marching in the wilderness, had the standard of a lion on it. And Ephraim's flag had a bull, and so on. But there's no contemporary record that ever describes the banners of Israel. We aren't told what their banners were. This is an interpretation placed on it by the rabbis after the time of Ezekiel, which would indicate that it wasn't Ezekiel wasn't describing this to compare it to the camp of Israel, but rather later rabbis saw or read what Ezekiel was describing, and they then took the camp of Israel and made it fit. Even the changing of Dan from a serpent to an eagle, there's no record of it. It is only something that is claimed by later rabbis. And so this is how they decided to make it fit. The second issue, not quite as big, is the fact that it is assuming that Ezekiel is describing it from his point of view. So he's saying, as I look at it, I see a man's face, and on my right-hand side is the lion, and on my left-hand side is the ox. But we don't know that is what he meant in his description. He could be describing it that its front is the man, obviously, and that its right-hand side is the lion. And therefore, as Ezekiel is looking at it, it would be the left hand. It would be on Ezekiel's left hand. This is a detail that is not specified in the text, and so in order to make this interpretation fit, we have to make an assumption about how Ezekiel means his description to be taken. And on a final note, there is one other issue with this interpretation. It's not really an issue. The interpretation could be right. But what the problem is that it doesn't actually tell us the purpose of it. Even if this was a representation taken from the camps of Israel, what does it mean? What is the purpose of it? What was God trying to tell Ezekiel by showing him these creatures? This explanation, while it makes a nice parallel between the two things, doesn't actually tell us anything. But it is a very interesting idea, so I wanted to share it. I'm going to leave I've been rambling too much, so I'm going to leave that here, and we will be reading some more in Ezekiel next, so I will see you there. Oh, and remember, like, comment, subscribe, ring the notifications, share, and if you made it all the way through the video, just comment weird creatures to let me know that you watched the whole thing. I'll see you in the next one.